You were twice deployed in the Middle East, flying the FA-18F Super Hornet. Can you briefly tell the story of your career as a Navy pilot?
Sure. So I joined the Navy in 2009, right after college. I went to essentially officer boot camp, officer candidate school. I applied as a pilot, and I got in as a pilot. That was the advantage of going that way, is that I could essentially choose what I wanted, and if I got in, great. If not, I didn't get stuck doing something else.
So you knew you wanted to be a pilot.
I did. I went through my initial training. I went through primary flight training that all aviators go through, and I did well enough that, one of the first lessons they teach you in the Navy is that, you can have a great career in the Navy and you can, see the world and do what you want. But at the end of the day, it's all about the needs of the Navy and what they need. So, they may not have the platform you like, or, you may not necessarily get to choose your own adventure here. But I was lucky enough that there was one jet slot in my class, and I was fortunate enough to get it. So,
what's a jet slot?
So, what that means is that I was assigned actually a tailhook at that point, which meant I would go train to fly aircraft that land on aircraft carriers. And there's essentially 3 aircraft that do that at the time. Is the F-18 and the E-2 and the C-2. C-2 is kind of like the mail truck for the boat. E-2 is the one with the big radar dish on top. And then there's all the F-18s.
So E-2 is comms, is C-2 mail truck?
Yeah.
What's that?
C-2 basically brings all the mail. They
literally
on
bring
the
the mail?
shore, and they're the ones that bring supplies to the ship via air and people.
Sorry if I missed it. Is it a plane or is it a helicopter?
It's a plane.
Okay. All right. And the F-18 is a fighter jet.
Correct.
Okay.
So I selected tailhook, which meant I could get one of those other ones, but 80% of them or so are jets. So I was in a good spot at that point. And that's when I went to Meridian, Mississippi to fly my first jet, which was the T-45 Goshawk.
Cool. So what kind of plane is that? That's what you were doing your training on?
That's the jet aircraft you get in before you actually go to the F-18. It is carrier capable. So go to the boat for the first time in it during the day, drop fake bombs, do dogfighting, low levels, formation flying day and night.
Oh, it's a pretty plane.
And it looks like a cone so that no one hits it.
Okay, so it's usually not used for fighting, it's used for training?
It's used for training how to fight.
Got it. So what was that like? Was that the first time you were sort of really getting into it?
Yeah, that was really interesting because before that, it was a 600 horsepower prop plane. And going from that to the T-45 is one of the biggest jumps in power in Navy, machine operation.
How much horsepower does the T-45 have approximately?
15,000 or so.
So it's a huge jump from 600, you said, horsepower about?
Yeah.
Cool. So it's a big leap.
Mm-hmm. But it's a jet, so it performs differently. It's faster, right? And what that means, not just because it's faster, your whole mind needs to be faster. Everything happens faster in the air now, right? Yeah. Those comms happen faster. Your landing gear has to come up faster. Everything just happens faster in a jet. And so it's a big jump. And I'll never forget going on my first flight in that aircraft. It was a formation flight for someone else, and I was just in the back watching, and there was an instructor in the flight. And so what that means is the instructor is in a single aircraft, and then there's 3 or 4 other aircraft, and they're learning how to do joins, and they're learning how to fly in formation. And as a new student in the back, it's amazing, right? Because, photo op time and all this, I'm seeing aircraft up close for the first time. It's awesome. And on the way back, we couldn't get our landing gear down, ironically. So to make a long story short, because it's overall not that exciting, we couldn't get the gear down. We actually went to go do a controlled ejection to the target area where that is, about 15, 20 miles to the north of the base.
Did you just say that's not that exciting?
Well,
because that to me is pretty exciting. So first of all, that must be terrifying. Early on in your careers, haven't seen those things. How often does that kind of thing happen?
Decent, more than you would think.
So there was no significant panic. This is this understood. This is what has to be done in this case.
I think I was probably just too dumb to realize the significance of it, because as a new student, not really appreciating, just what is ahead of me if we are ejecting. But at the time, it was just rote, right? Because I was back there, and then I went from a observer mode to I'm going to provide you the help that I can provide you as a member of this crew, mode. And so it was less about I'm, on this 20-mile trip and thinking about my how vulnerable I am. We're going through checklists, we're talking to people, we're getting ready. So no, it wasn't fearful. And the whole time we were doing one of these to try to get
What's one of
gear
these?
down. So we're
Oh,
unloading the jet and then loading it back to try to get the gear out with the stick. And it came down. It came down halfway there, just on its own. So it came back around, and we did like a safety trap in case there was a problem with the gear. And that was my first flight. A little bit of serendipity, but I'm going to fast forward a bit. And I went back to that squadron as an instructor about 5 or 6 years later, and I was an aviation safety officer at this point, which meant I was responsible for investigating mishaps. And a student went in, and he went in the back seat of a formed flight, just like the one I went on, and he went out and he ended up ejecting on that flight. Exact same type of flight. They went out and they had a runaway trim scenario, and it caused the aircraft essentially just invert itself almost 180 degrees at about 600 feet over the ground, and they punched out just slightly outside the ejection window at about 300, 400 feet or so, but they were completely fine. And then about 2 months later, we had another ejection. About 3 months after that, we had another ejection. So, unfortunately, it can be more common than people think.
what does it feel like to get ejected?
Thankfully, I don't know. I can
you've
describe it to you.
never been
I can
ejected.
tell you what it's like from what I've heard, but I truly think it's one of those things that you just don't understand until it happens. It's like instantaneous, about 250 Gs, which is only possible because of inertia in our blood, right? So you can actually get like 250, 300 Gs for like a few milliseconds, and then it backs off to like 40 or 50 Gs to get you away from the vehicle itself. And so, you may lose consciousness. If you do, who knows where you wake up. You could be in a tree, you could still be falling, you could be in the water. So
The physics of that is fascinating. How to eject safely.
do you know the story about how that was tested at all?
No.
I don't know the full story, but there was an
I'm
Air
guessing
Force.
nobody knows the full story. It's probably a lot of shady stuff going on. But anyway, you mean like in the early days, or
They used to hook a flight dock up to a rocket sled and just see how much their body could take it. And he turned a lot of his body into mush in the process of getting that science done, but he saved a lot of lives.
people used to be tougher back in the day? That's how science used to be done.